Okay, so to set up our environment, you'll be needing several tools. We'll be using XAMPP to set up a local host environment on our computer. We'll be using Visual Studio Code as our editor. We'll be using Chrome as our web browser. You may be able to use Firefox or another browser, but in this course we'll be using Chrome, and we'll also of course need the jQuery library. So you can go out to these different websites, code.visualstudio.com, and download Visual Studio Code for your version of Windows. Right? If you use a Mac or Linux, there are also versions available for those operating systems. The same thing goes for XAMPP. You can just download a version for Windows, and the latest version of XAMPP will carry PHP 7.4.1. And of course, we will need our jQuery library. Alright, so when you go to jQuery.com, you can come here to the download link and click on it. It will take you to this download section right here. So here it explains to us the different versions of jQuery that we can download. You have the compressed and the uncompressed copies of jQuery. So it says the uncompressed file is best used during development or for debugging. The compressed file, on the other hand, saves bandwidth and improves performance in production. So when we say production, it means that an application is made live for users to be able to access it and use it. So that's what we mean by production. So for our purposes, we can really use either the compressed or the uncompressed version, but let's go ahead with the uncompressed version, and we can download that. Another option available to us to set up jQuery is using jQuery with a CDN. So CDNs can offer performance benefits by hosting jQuery on servers spread across the globe. Okay, so in order to include a CDN in your web document or your web page, you can just go over here to the Google hosted library, and here we can see the jQuery 3.4.1 script, and you'll be able to copy this and paste in your web browser. However, I will demonstrate how to set up jQuery locally on your computer. Reason being, if you are somewhere that doesn't have a strong or reliable internet connection, then you will lose connection to that jQuery CDN library. Okay, so it's always good, even when you're packaging up your applications and sending them out into production, it is good to have a local copy of jQuery. So let us go back up here, and like I said, it doesn't matter, you can get the compressed or the uncompressed version, but since we'll just be testing and doing some debugging, we can go with the uncompressed file. So let us click on that, and here we get this lovely jQuery library. Okay, so that's what this one looks like. If we had chosen the compressed version, right, you can see here it is a lot more compact, little to no white space involved. So like I said, you can choose either one. Alright, so let's go with the uncompressed version, and we can do a quick select of all of the elements or all of this page by doing Ctrl A. And then we can right click and copy this content, and I have already gone ahead and set up Visual Studio Code. It's pretty simple to download. You just have to follow the installation instructions, and the same thing for XAMPP. So with XAMPP, I'm going to go ahead and start my Apache module, which is really the only module that we'll probably be using in this course. So let me minimize this, and open up my Visual Studio Code. Now here we can create a new file to store our jQuery in. So let us paste our jQuery code. Alright, and then let us save it. So file, save as, and here is where XAMPP comes into play. We want to make sure that we save everything inside our directory that we'll be working in. So let us go to our C drive, scroll down to your XAMPP folder, open up htdocs, and this is where we can create our directory, which we will access via localhost. So I'm going to create a new folder for this course, and I will just name it Dynamic Web, and I'm going to create another folder inside here, and I'm going to call it JS. So all my JavaScript files will be stored inside this JS folder. So let us come down here and let's name our file jQuery, and if you want to put the version number on it, we can do that. So let's just copy the version number and paste it on here, and probably put an underscore, and we want to make sure to save our files with a .js extension. Okay, so let us save that. Okay, so now we have jQuery saved in our directory. So now the next step, of course, is testing out our jQuery. So let us create another file, and now we're going to save this one as our HTML file. So we're still currently in our JS or JavaScript directory. We want to go one level up to our dynamic web folder, and here we're going to save our HTML document. So I can just name it index.html. So with localhost, once you type in the dynamic web URL, it will automatically recognize the index.html file and load it. Okay, so HTML file is saved, and here we can see the path that our files are saved in. Right, our jQuery file is in C drive, XAMPP, htdocs, dynamic web, JS folder, and here we have our oh, I spelled it wrong. Alright, so I'll have to rename this file. Save as, this should be jQuery. There we go. Alright, and then in our index file we can see the path C drive, XAMPP, htdocs, dynamic web, index.html. so it is one level up from our jQuery file. Okay, so now we can start building out our HTML file. So let us start with our doc type, which is HTML, and we can have our head. Okay, and inside our head, let me fix this, we can have our title, and our title will just be learning jQuery, and then we have our body tag. Alright, so that's pretty much the structure of our HTML file. We should also have a closing HTML tag here. Right, and of course Sorry, I didn't put our beginning HTML tag. Alright, so we spoke about attributes earlier on, and one attribute that you can add to your HTML tag is a language. Right, so it helps define the language of an element, so it gives you the language of your HTML page. So we can always have language, and we can choose English. Of course, it's going to be English by default. However, you can specify different languages for your HTML page. Right, so now let us put a simple h3 tag, and we're gonna say welcome to dynamic web. Okay, so now we have our HTML page, our index page. Let us save this, and let us just load this up in our browser. So we can go to localhost, and first, to make sure that localhost is running, you want to type in localhost/dashboard. Okay, not so sure what happened there. Let me just type in localhost and hit enter. Alright, so here you can see that IIS is running, which is Internet Information Services. This is Windows version of its local web server. So this is occupying my regular port 8000 that localhost runs on. So I have to specify that I want to run it on my port 8080. And if you type in localhost//dashboard and you're unable to access this page, what you can do is you can go to your XAMPP folder, right, and open up Apache, open up your configuration folder, and edit this httpd.configuration file. So I can right click on it and edit it with Notepad++. And in this file I can do a quick search. So I'll press Ctrl F, I'll type in listen, hit enter, and if necessary you can change this port number to a port that whatever port you prefer. Right? So I've changed mine to port 8080. If you're having problems running Apache or your local host on port 8000, which is the default port, you can follow these instructions to change the port that localhost listens on. Okay, so we can close that, save it, and let's go back to our htdocs and dynamic web folder. Alright, so in order to access our web page, we have to specify that we're going to look for our file inside our dynamic web folder. So let's type that in. So let's press dynamic web. Right, and here, as I said, once it sees an index page, index.html page inside your directory, it will automatically run that file without you having to specify index in the URL. So it will be the same as typing it here, the same thing. Alright. Okay, so now that we have our web page running, let us include our Java or jQuery file inside this web page. So inside the head tag of our HTML document, we want to add a script, and we are going to add a source attribute. So this source attribute, we can specify the location of our jQuery file. So we know that it is within the same directory as our index file, however it is inside the JS folder. So we have to specify the JS directory, and that / implies that this is a directory. So now we can enter the name of our jQuery file. So jQuery, and it is underscore version 3.4.1. Okay. And now to test this script, we can open up another script tag, and we can do a simple alert, and we can enter. So we're getting some IntelliSense here. We can enter a message, so we can simply type jQuery up and running. Okay, and we close that off with a semicolon. So let us save this, and we can now come back to our page and we can refresh, and here we see our alert popping up, jQuery up and running. Alright, so we have successfully included jQuery within our HTML file, and we click on OK, and then our web page, the rest of our web page will load. So being able to change the content of a web page while it is loaded is a very powerful concept, right? So you can change that content in the browser while it is being loaded. You can access the content of the page, you can modify it, you can specify rules that the browser can follow, and you can also react to events triggered by a user, like a keystroke or a mouse click, or even hovering the mouse over an element. So in the next lesson, we're going to take a look at how we can select elements in our web page and also modify them. Alright, so see you in the next lesson.